The following show is a paid program.
What's up? I am so excited about this whole entire week. This is Women Who Win Series 2020. And on yesterday, we had Rashonda Tate Billingsley. On today, we have TRICIA Jones. We will go with her and talk to her about her journey through domestic violence. TRICIA Jones, hey lady, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am so glad you decided, first of all, to tell your story through a book. Man.
I know, me too.
Just the journey, the journey. Shout out to Carlos Wallace, who introduced me to you, and your Aunt Rose
Hey,
Goff. I know, and Rose Goff, your aunt. I didn't know that. I've been knowing her a while.
I know, that's Ain't Cookie.
Hey, Cookie, shout out to you, lady. Wanted to tell people, first of all, beyond thank you, but you are a blessing. As a survivor, just a blessing to be able to say you're out. Wow. Lady.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It feels good to be out.
Yeah, I know. I know it does. You're an educator, life coach, and mentor to others because of this. Is this why?
Yes. I believe that all of this together is my calling, for me to do and for me to help others based on my experiences.
Right. And let's get started on what all happened. I know you sent me some things. What is the book completely about?
The book is about every physical abuse incident that happened during the 16 years that I was with my kids' dad. All the way up until I exited out.
Right. I know, right? But I like what I love about your book, and this is it right here, His Weapon of Choice. And the name itself gives distinction of what happens in a lot of ways. I'm glad that you were strong enough to write it. And you were very transparent and real. Why so?
Ooh. I honestly, I didn't want to be transparent. I didn't want to write this book. I was going to take this one to the grave.
Yeah.
I felt that this was just something that happened. I made it out, and so I should just move on with my life and just live off my experiences and just do better and make my life better. But having people in your ear who know what you went through and know what you have gone through and all the things that you experienced, and them encouraging you to tell your story and tell everybody in order to help others is why I end up writing the book. And one person in particular, Carlos Wallace.
I know.
He was in my ear from sun up to sundown every time I talked to him, and I didn't think that my story was special. I didn't think there was anything magnificent about it until I started talking and telling more people, and then they were just, wow, like you should tell somebody, people need to hear this. And so after praying about it and thinking about it for so long, then I finally listened to Carlos and I went ahead and wrote it.
I want to go back to the first time when you were the first incident. And I think by doing that, that helps so many that are that are viewers today that know somebody or is going through it, can kind of understand the process and why you stay. Let's start with that first shock, that first incident.
That was the that was the gun incident. I was terrified. It came out of nowhere. And we were having a conversation. We got into an argument, and out of nowhere, he just pulled the gun out and he pointed it at me. He said that, if I didn't shut up,
right,
he was going to pull the trigger. And so all I could think of at that moment was just to, I just asked him or begged him to not do this.
Yeah.
To just think about his life, my life. And he held it there for a long time. And then I just knew at that moment, I was like, okay, this might be my end. This might be it for me, because it don't look like he gonna stop. He gonna keep going. But then I guess that was a scare tactic. And so he eventually put it down, and all was well. He apologized and said he was sorry, and it never, he was going through things. He was struggling with his own issues from childhood, and just like that, it was all over, and we were in love again.
Okay. From that incident to the second, how long of a pattern? I mean, how long was a time frame from that gun issue to your second incident that you describe in the book?
The second incident had to have taken place about 6 or 7 months after that. We were by that time I had I had gotten my own apartment, and he was getting ready to go off to college, and we were having an argument about the fact that I wanted to keep the baby. And so, of course, he didn't want that to happen. And so that's where that incident came from. And
now, you were pregnant at this time?
Yes.
And then the second incident happens. What happens here?
Well, he wanted me to get an abortion, and at first I told him I was, and just to get him off my back a little bit, I told him I was, but I didn't want to, because I had already had an abortion prior to, and so I wanted to keep this baby, and so he didn't want it. He said he was going off to college. He didn't want me to ruin his life. He didn't want me to, a baby. He couldn't take care of a baby, which I knew, because we were both young. I think we were almost 20. And then I wanted to keep the baby. So I told him that I wasn't going to get an abortion. And that's when he proceeded to, go look around the room, and he went and picked up something. And when he picked it up, I knew that, okay, he was probably going to throw that at me. And that was when somebody knocked on the door, and it was his godfather. He came, knocked on the door, and saved the situation.
Wow. At that time, did you have that child, or did you abort?
I did. No, I didn't. I went ahead and I had that one.
Okay. And that's your oldest son?
Yes.
That is your oldest son. We talk about that. I know it's we're going to go a little struggles through the process of talking through this, and it's in your book, the validation and everything, and I love the way you've written it. It's very easy to read, and it's something that frees others. And I'm really so proud of you just to even say that along the way, each and every time. Why did you stay as long as you did? Everybody asked the question.
I loved him. I thought he would get better. I wanted to stay for my kids. Growing up, I didn't have my father. And one of the biggest things growing up in my childhood, I always said that whenever I had kids, whoever I had kids with, I would stay with them, so my kids can grow up in a household with their mom and their dad, not a stepmom or a stepdad, not having to go from house to house on the weekends. And that was a fairy tale of mine. I wanted to fall in love, get married, have kids, stay with the same person for the rest of my life. And so when the abuse happened, I just felt like love conquered everything, and whatever happened, to keep my family together and to make sure that, you know, my kids had that family dynamic. That's what I did. And that's I just allowed myself to just go through it because I felt like at the end, love would prevail. So.
Wow. What your story is a little different. Did you see this growing up? Were you in a domestic violence? Were your parents in a domestically violence against each other? Did you see that? Was that part of your life? Because many times people feel that the child is going to be the product of, you know, what the parents were.
Right, what they saw growing up. No, I didn't. Like I said, my dad wasn't there. So it was just my mom and my brothers.
Right.
So, but I didn't see any violence or any of that growing up. But I will say on his end, he experienced his mom getting beat up and getting, you know, abused in his childhood. And that was a lot of his excuse or his reasoning for doing what he did.
Right. You were afraid to tell family.
I was.
And why?
That's why none of them knew until I put the book out. I didn't want to tell them because when you love somebody, the last thing you want is for your family and friends to look at them in a negative light.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to tell them this because I already knew my family. The family I have, it was no going back. If I told them that was it, they would pull me out of the situation and I wouldn't have been able to go back. I would have been fighting, trying to go back because I wasn't ready to leave. And that's another reason I wasn't ready to go. Even though my mind knew that it was wrong, my heart wasn't ready to leave the situation. And so I didn't want to tell my family or my friends because I knew that once I told that, it would be out there. Once you tell something, it's out there and you have to live up. You have to hold, you know, you have to be accountable for it.
Right.
I didn't want that truth to be out yet.
Right.
Because then I would really have to own up to it, that I'm getting abused and getting beat. And so, and if I stayed, then I would really be ashamed and embarrassed because now people know.
Right. You were going to work every single day.
I was.
And nobody knew.
No.
Nobody had any clues.
My friends, some of my coworkers are shocked to this day because we had pillow talk conversations during our lunch breaks and during, you know, our breaks while at school. And I talked about all the other, you know, we cried and talked about everything but this.
Yes.
And so they're shocked. They felt like bad friends because they didn't know and they felt like they should have known. But like I tell them, it's not their fault. I didn't reach out to anybody. I didn't open up to anybody. I held this in.
Yeah.
So
it's a question that everybody wants to know is when you know a friend, and I put this out here before, when you know of a friend or family member that's in a domestic violence situation, is there any way to convince them, him or her? And we want to make that clear. Men are also being abused. I want to make that clear. So it's not just women. Men are also part of domestic violence. But him or her, is there any way to convince them to leave? Is there any way for the family or the friends if they know it's happening?
It's hard because I always say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. Even if they know the water is nourishing, that it's going to be good for them, you can't. I feel like in my situation, even if family and friends were to reach out and were providing support, I still wouldn't have left or I still wouldn't have wanted to leave because I didn't want to. So the only thing you can do is provide that support, provide that ear for them to vent, allow them to understand that you are there for them whenever they decide to be done. But until they are ready mentally and physically, they won't leave. And that's the hardest part because some friends and family members have to watch their friend go through it for so long because they're not ready to leave.
Wow. Did he keep you away from your family at any point?
He did. He kept me away from my friends and my family for a long time. For a long time, I didn't visit with my family members. On holidays, it was just me, him, or me, him, and the kids. We
Uh-huh.
didn't, I made up excuses why I couldn't go. Oh, he's too tired, or I don't want to go because I just want to. We're planning on staying at home and spending some family time. When really it was him just making up excuses of why he didn't want to be around my family, because that's what a lot of times they do. They make you feel bad. They make you feel like your family and friends are hurting them or being mean to them or doing things to them to make them feel uncomfortable. So then you'll feel bad and say, oh, well, I'm not going then, or I'm not going to hang around them, or I'm not going to go spend time with my family if they're going to treat you like that. But it's all just them bluffing, just trying to get you to just trying to have that control over you.
Right.
So yeah, I missed out on a lot of my friends' important events and special moments because I could not contact them. If he knew I was on the phone with one of them, he purposely get an attitude and talk trash about them, and that would make me get off the phone with him.
Right, because you didn't want them to hear him.
I didn't want them to hear him, and then at the same time, because he always had a way of making me feel like if he felt my friends were this type of way, then that meant that I was too. So he'd always, and so because I didn't want that image and because I didn't want him to think that way of me, even though he was going to think that way anyways,
right.
I just distanced myself from everybody, from my family and anybody who was in my life. I kept it.
You have your second one and then you have 3 children. What would make you have your third one?
Right. So after the first one, it was never a plan to have any more,
Right.
but throughout the years, we had moments where he was abusive every day. And then there were times when he wasn't abusive. And so during those times when he wasn't and things were okay was when the babies happened.
Absolutely. Let's take a break right now and we'll be right back with TRICIA Jones.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. For a limited time, get $16,000 off all in-stock Cadillac 2019 XT5 crossovers and $19,000 off all in-stock 2019 CT6 sedans. Or experience the first ever 2020 Cadillac XT6 Premium Luxury Collection, only $519 with $1 down for 39 months lease. Or purchase and receive 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
When it comes to protecting yourself and your partners, all the information out there can be overwhelming. Visit our website. We are a free and confidential service striving to help you stay informed and stay notified. We are committed to a healthy Houston.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. Drive the new 2020 Cadillac XT4, only $399 a month, or the new 2020 XT5, only $429 a month, both for 39 months lease with just $1 down. Or purchase the XT4 or XT5 and enjoy 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
Our story begins more than 60 years ago inside an abandoned chicken coop where our founder discovered a retired teacher living. No home, no health care. So she said no to this injustice and yes to transforming lives. It's this drive, this compassion that inspired AARP. Today we empower people to choose how they live as they age. We advocate for health and financial security. We strengthen communities everywhere. We are AARP, creating real possibilities.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, family, thank you so much for coming back. We're talking to TRICIA Jones, and we're talking about domestic violence and her being a survivor. Hey, lady.
Hey.
Hey. What is going on? So I was just reading through some of the comments. Everybody wants to do a shout out to you. They appreciate everything you are doing. You have a lot of people out here that love you, lady.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. I was looking through a lot of the questions and things like that, but one of the main questions is, and I guess helping family try to understand the process that you went through. You have gone, they wanted a timeline. You were with him from 2000 until when?
2016.
Okay. So 16 years of your life, of you guys' life, you all were together or off and on, or how was that?
We were together. There were 2 periods of time where we split up for maybe a couple months, and then we got back together.
Okay. But during those times, you have children.
Yes.
And then let's understand the process of trying to get out. Once you realize, or what triggers you to say, no more? What triggers you to say, I'm tired of this? What aspect or what time happens?
Well, I think it had to be in the last year. By then my kids are older. I have my baby girl, and over the years I've constantly told him, not to do it, not to do it. You hear yourself repeatedly saying the same thing over and over. Don't do it anymore, or the next time is the last time.
Right.
And so the last year before everything happened, I had started kind of hanging back out with some friends and enjoying life and having fun. And then another incident happened.
Yes.
And this time I had all 3 of my kids there. So this time, not just one child was involved and saw it, but all 3 of them saw it. And so again, like always, I asked him not to do what he was going to do, and he did it anyways. And when he did it, my oldest son jumped in between and started standing up for me. And then, of course, I blocked him to move him out of the way. And then my daughter, she saw it, and she came in and started, saying, "Mommy, no, Daddy, no, don't do this to Mommy." And then I think that was it. It was one thing when I had one child that was having to deal with it. But the fact that now I have all 3 and now they're going to have to deal with it. And then on top of that, my daughter, I didn't want her to think that this was okay. I didn't want my sons to think that domestic violence is okay, but I definitely didn't want my daughter to think that this is how a man is supposed to treat them, how a man is supposed to behave, and I didn't want her to grow up living and repeating this cycle.
Right.
So and then again, like I said, when I heard myself saying the same thing that I had been saying over and over, you said that you weren't going to do it. That was it. I was like, he's not going to, it's been 16 years. 16 years. It sucks that it took me that long, but 16 years and he's still doing the same thing. I thought he had changed. He had went to classes and did everything that he thought that he could do. But at that point, it was done. I couldn't do it. I at that point, I was like, no, I refuse to let my children hurt anymore.
Right. And I want to just bring up the instance, people don't really know it, but you wrote it in your book, a lot of it. I received the book in purchasing and in things like that. You've been choked. A hammer has been thrown at you several times. You've been beaten with a belt, just like a child would have been, spanked or whipped with a belt. And what other things? I'm just going to let you speak on some things because I want it to be visual for people to understand that domestic violence is happening now, right this moment with people. And these are the things that's happening.
Even while we're talking, somebody is getting beat. And so in my situations, there was a gun to my head.
Yes.
There was the belt. There was the hammer. There was the kitchen knife.
Yes.
I've been choked. I've been spit on.
Yes.
There was the incident where he poured dish soap down my throat
Yes.
till I gagged and coughed up blood.
Yes.
I've been kicked in my
Yes.
stomach while I was pregnant.
Right. And I just wanted people to see and understand that's domestic violence. That's what it is right this moment. That's what's happening while we're speaking and talking and having this conversation right now.
Right.
That it's not, now, yes, words, there are being abusive with words, cursing you out, calling you B's and H's and all other kind of stuff, but you have been physically over 16 years being abused over that time
Right.
period. And your family did not know about it. So I want people to understand that that's not right. That's not love.
No, it's not. And when you're in it, you think it is, because you think that, you know, you hear the person saying, "Oh, I do this because I love you."
Yes.
So you think that okay, that's his way of showing me that he loves me.
Right.
You know, but then once you're out of it and then you start realizing that if you love me, you wouldn't do this.
Right.
That's
right.
the first thing. If you love me, you wouldn't do this. No person. I have been in so many situations where I have wanted to, you know, I couldn't see myself, as much as he's done to me, I could never put my hand on him. I could never lay a finger on him and hurt him.
Right.
Because I love him.
Right.
So once I realized that that's not love, you hurting me and doing these things to me, you're not doing this because you love me. You're doing this because you want to be scared of you. You're doing this because you want to have power over me. You want to control my thoughts, my actions, my words, everything.
Yes.
That's not love. Love is not control.
Right. It's not controlled. And you also wanted to save your children. We spoke about the fact about therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And you were telling me about your oldest son, because of course he's been in it the longest.
Right. And I always tell him that because he's been in it the longest, that's what makes our bond so strong.
Right.
No matter what we go through, because he's 16, he's going through those teen years where he wants to.
Yeah.
But he and I have a bond that is unbreakable because he was the only person there.
Yes.
When my friends and family didn't know, he knew. He saw things, he heard things. And so all of that, because of that, I've had to take him. He acts when he was in when he was in kindergarten, he acted out in class, and that was at school, and that was the first time I noticed that he's picking up those things that he's seen. Right. And so from that moment on, he's had to go to different classes and different therapy sessions. Yes. Because every now and then his anger gets the best of him. Right. And so, when we're in it, we think that we're the only victims, but we're not. It's also the kids having to watch that and see that and soak that in. Yeah. And thinking that that's how they're supposed to behave. And that's the way that they get people to do what they want them to do. Right. And that's not the case. And so he's my special one. I love all my kids the same, but because of that, he'll always have that connection with me. Right. And he does. He's the one that has always tried to save you and protect you. He has. Even during the situations that occurred, he was all, in his smallest voice, he would always say, "Mommy, no, don't do that." Right. So. Right. And you knew, and I know for being a parent, the protection you want for your children, and that's really one of the huge reasons you did get out. Yes, that's probably that was the biggest one. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about
matter
how much I loved him, at that point, I was like, it's done. I'll just have to take this hurt, and I'll eventually get over it. Right, absolutely. Let's talk about exit plans, because that's what everybody, so many know they want to get out or even thinking about or looking at and listening to it now to get out. Right. What was the exit? First, I didn't have a plan. I just knew that I needed to get out. Yes. And so I started mentally preparing myself.
Yes.
Over the last year that that I was with him, I started just mentally preparing myself to not be with him.
Right.
I started, trying to figure myself out and make myself better and become stronger within, because he had taken all of that away from me.
Right.
I didn't think I was strong. I didn't think I was good enough. There were a lot of things that I had to rebuild.
Right.
And so the last year, that's what I did. I mentally brought myself from the bottom back up.
Right.
Because I knew that I had to be strong in order for this to happen and in order for me not to go back.
Right. Right.
So, and then, like I said, once I was there, then it was I just had to figure out where I was going to go. And then I had to also prepare myself to eventually tell my story at some point.
Right. Right. And we just want to make sure that people know no one in your family knew. So family members and friends that are watching, they just didn't know. They didn't have a clue.
No, my mom didn't know. And right before I got ready to publish the book, I wanted her to take some time to read it before it even came out.
Right.
And so just so she would know and she would be prepared, because she didn't know. And
right.
I knew that this would probably hurt her more than anybody.
Right. And I just wanted to make sure that people that are listening, and there's a lot of friends and family that are listening right now, just wanted them to make sure they knew that no family knew. So when people say, well, why didn't they help? They couldn't, because they just didn't know.
No, nobody knew. My family, my friends. What people knew were I was just unhappy. He probably was mean to me. He probably just didn't treat me right, didn't help out with the kids, didn't help out financially, didn't spend time with me. They knew that.
Yeah.
They didn't know that he was physically
abusing
his hands
you.
on me.
Yeah.
They didn't know that there were weapons involved. They didn't know any of that. They just thought I was another unhappy woman who didn't get the love and attention that she needed. Right.
And I think we spoke about it, that when you did mention it at one point, I don't know who it was or what happened, but they were saying just like he's just a man or something like that, in some kind of way.
No, nobody ever said that, but there was times before during the incidents where somebody, it was said that, oh, well, you must like it because you've been in it this long.
Right. Okay. So, that's what it was. Yeah. Wow.
So that was, in a situation, I didn't like it. There was nothing about that situation that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find the mental strength to get out of it.
Right.
So when I heard that, all that did was made me just shut down even more, because in my mind, I'm thinking, that's how people are going to look at me. That's how they're going to think that I like it, and it's okay, and it's not okay. It was never okay.
Right.
So, that's why I try to encourage people and encourage family members and friends who know that somebody's going through it, or even if it's not a family member or a friend, but if you know somebody's going through it, don't say that. That's the last thing. That you don't want to make the person feel worse than they already do.
Right.
They already know it's wrong. And so when you point fingers at them and say, oh, you stupid, or oh, you better than me because I would have been left, you don't know what you would have done until you're in the situation.
Right.
Because I said a lot of things that I wouldn't take and I wouldn't endure, but I did.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're speaking of that. A lot of people always say, well, just leave and go to a shelter. Okay. So I want to discuss that and let people understand you had 2 boys and a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you tried to go to a women's shelter, many times you can't bring boys with you.
Right. That's the thing with shelters. A lot of shelters, even the regular shelters, they only take so many people in.
Right.
And then you can sleep there, but in the daytime you have to go wander somewhere. So me trying to go to a shelter with 3 of my kids, I'm thinking, I wonder if they're going to allow me with my 2 kids, because this is a women's shelter.
Right.
Some women's shelters don't allow boys, men, because it's for women. So
Yes.
that means that I'm going to have to leave my 2 sons somewhere, or I'm going to have to just, and so, and then a lot of shelters, are they don't take you have to line up and wait for them to accept you in.
Right.
And then stand in that line for them to say, oh, we can't take anymore.
Right.
And then that's it.
Right.
So the last thing I didn't think a shelter was okay. And so knowing that we can't really go to a lot of shelters, it just makes you stay. Like, well, I might as well stay where I'm at because I don't really have anywhere to go. We don't want to reach out to family and friends because we know how that's going to turn out.
Right.
We're shelters. You have to call all day and all night. But when you're in a situation getting beat up and abused, how can you reach out?
Right.
It's like you don't have the time or the strength to reach out to even find a place to go.
Right. Right.
And then the police, they're no help either, because they won't come to your rescue unless you're getting beat up.
Right.
Unless you're actually getting beat. Because I've called several times and say, hey, he threatened me. He said he was going to do this. And the first thing that they say is, ma'am, is he putting his hands on you now? And I'm like, no, but he said he will.
Right.
Okay, well, ma'am, call us back when that actually happens.
And you
want me to call you back? So you want me to call you back when I'm dead?
Right.
That's what you're telling me.
Yes. I wanted people to understand that part I'm glad you brought that up about the police. You did call out for help on a consistent basis, and they just,
I even called to tell them that I wanted to put him out. And no, his name was not on the lease. And the first thing they said was, ma'am, well, because he has clothes here, we can't put him out.
Right.
And so I just told you that he just punched me. He's threatening to do this. He said he was going to do this. And y'all said that I can't put him out because he has clothes here, because he lives here, even though his name is not on the lease. And then they say, oh, well, go talk that up with your landlord. And so in my mind, talking to my landlord means that I'm going to be even more trouble because he's not leave.
Right.
Breach of contract. So I'm going to have to leave.
Right.
So you're stuck.
Right. When do they pick him up? When do they actually take him in?
It had to, the time when they actually took him in, they got a call from somebody else.
There you go.
Somebody else called saying that there's, a man and a woman fighting, and it sounds like the man is fighting on the woman.
Right.
And that's when they came. But
right.
if you as the victim call for yourself, so.
Yeah. So when you as the victim, when you called, they did not pick him up. But when someone else called, they did.
They came. Right. But that's still even, you're still in a hard place, because how do you know that when this is happening to you, that somebody else is going to hear it?
Right.
To call for you.
Right.
So it's kind of stuck. And so that's why a lot of victims feel like law enforcement doesn't help them. They can't. And they can't help.
And when they took him away, what happened after that? You're there with the children. Do you leave then?
The first time they took him away, because he went twice, because somebody called twice. And the first time they took him away, I just had my one son.
Okay.
So the first time when they took him away, that's when they came. And that's the incident where my mom and my uncles did come. But like I said, they didn't know that it was that bad until after when they got there and they saw me. And then the police did come. They took me to the station because they wanted me to file a report, and they wanted me to get a restraining order and all of that stuff.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And so they took him and put him behind the car. And of course, me, I'm feeling sad and feeling bad because, oh my God, he's going to jail. Even though he just beat me up, he's going to jail. His life is he's going to have a record. I'm thinking about him. Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, he spent time in jail. And during that process, I left and moved in with my mom, me and my son and my mom. Mm-hmm. And so I lived there. And then when he was released, and because I couldn't contact him, there's no contact. I couldn't contact him, even though I went down to the courts several times to try to get them to drop the charges. But with domestic violence cases, once the police arrive and the state gets involved, then you can't drop it. It's automatically right. It automatically gets picked up. So I couldn't, even if I went down there and said no, that wasn't him. They picked it up. So I had to go through the route. So he ended up doing time, and I stayed with my mom for a while. And then when he got out, we still stayed separate. But then he ended up taking classes and convincing me that he had gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when we got back together eventually. I ended up moving into an apartment, and then my brother lived with me just so I could have that extra protection. And he ended up moving in eventually after that. And then by the second incident, that's when another person called and they took him. And that's when they made the comment to me that you keep letting this person do this to you. You know, you should be ashamed and you should be embarrassed, because I was kind of upset with the police because I didn't want him to go to jail because I didn't call. And so when they came, I had an attitude with the officer, and he was telling me, you know, while you're getting an attitude with me, you should have an attitude with him because he's putting his hands on you. I'm not. And so, like I said, that second time he went, and that was the time he actually spent a longer time in jail. And by then I had my baby. I had my second child. So he was in jail for about 2 years, separated. I did stay. I didn't move back in with my mom, but I stayed in my apartment, and it was just me and my 2 sons. And then again, when he got out, he went to classes and did all of that. And he convinced me again that he had changed and jail life wasn't for him. And then we were back in it again up until the last year or so.
Okay. We'll take a pause right there. We'll be right back with TRICIA Jones.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
When it comes to protecting yourself and your partners, all the information out there can be overwhelming. Visit our website. We are a free and confidential service striving to help you stay informed and stay notified. We are committed to a healthy Houston.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. Drive the new 2020 Cadillac XT4, only $399 a month, or the new 2020 XT5, only $429 a month, both for 39 months lease with just $1 down. Or purchase the XT4 or XT5 and enjoy 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
Our story begins more than 60 years ago, inside an abandoned chicken coop, where our founder discovered a retired teacher living. No home, no health care. So she said no to this injustice, and yes to transforming lives. It's this drive, this compassion that inspired AARP. Today, we empower people to choose how they live as they age. We advocate for health and financial security. We strengthen communities everywhere. We are AARP, creating real possibilities.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. For a limited time, get $16,000 off all in-stock Cadillac 2019 XT5 crossovers and $19,000 off all in-stock 2019 CT6 sedans. Or experience the first ever 2020 Cadillac XT6 Premium Luxury Collection, only $519 with $1 down for 39 months lease. Or purchase and receive 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, we are back with TRICIA Jones, and we're talking about her being a survivor with domestic violence. Hey, lady.
Hey again.
Hey. We were just talking about the fact about the police, and I'm glad you're bringing that up, because so many times we call the police and for help. And during this time, and the 911 calls that they receive. And you were just saying that one of the police officers said what to you?
He said that, because I had an attitude with him, and he said that I should not have an attitude with him. I should have an attitude with the person that's beating me up, because this apparently isn't the first time, and he has a record of doing this. So right. He said that I should be ashamed and embarrassed to be even, having an attitude with him, saying as though I'm allowing this man to put his hands on me.
Right. Now, this time he goes to jail, he stays for how many years?
He was in jail for about 2 years.
About 2 years. And then you stay, you still in the apartment, you were saying?
Right. I stayed in the apartment with my kids. And then when it was time for him, I think I ended up moving to another apartment by that time. But then he ended up getting parole after his 2 years. And so then eventually, like I said, we ended up getting back together after he did classes and proved to me once again that he was better and he was going to change, and he, you know, didn't want to lose his family. And so then we ended up getting back together.
Now, you just had 2 children at this point, is that right? You had your 2 boys?
I just had 2.
Okay, you didn't have your little girl at this point?
No.
Okay. So, and during that period of time, now you have another child.
Mm-hmm.
From that point, when do the incidents start again with him? Because he's gone to the classes, he's getting out of prison, he's convinced you.
Right. And so for a while, for maybe a couple years, the physical had died down. And it was always just the verbal. The verbal was always there no matter what. The verbal and mental and emotional, all of that was there. The physical had died down a little bit. And instead of hitting me, he punched walls or punched doors or break things in the house, or he'd leave. And so that's another reason why I was like, okay, well, maybe this time around he is changing a little bit, because he's learning how to, you know, direct his anger elsewhere instead of. Right. And so, but yeah, so like I said, the physical had died down a little bit, and then but the verbal was always there.
It was always there. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where did we get to our escape? We're leaving now. We decide to leave. Walk us through the escape date.
So this was the date, the incident I was telling you that where all my kids kind of were there and they saw it. And this was when we got into another big argument. I had already started planning that me and him were not going to be together forever by then, because and so, like I said, mentally I started preparing myself for us not to be together. Right. And so this day, I guess, was my ultimate sign from God. Like, you're definitely not
right.
This happened. And so when this happened, after everything had calmed down and I realized my kids were crying and everybody was upset, I had to calm my oldest son down because he was upset. He was furious. Then my daughter was crying, and after everything calmed down, I had just told him, I was like, I can't do this no more. Like, it's it. You got to go. And so again, that was a situation too where I called the police. And well, I didn't want to at first, because I was giving him the chance to leave nice, calmly. And I asked him to leave, and I told him, you know, I'm asking you to leave because the apartment is in my name, and we're not going to be together. And he refused to. He said he wasn't going anywhere until he got ready to. Right. And so, but at that point, I was like, okay, you're not ready to leave. So I had a decision to make. Either I stayed or I left. And I thought to myself, if this was my last time, I had to leave. Even if it meant my lease and messing my name up, I just had to leave. And that's a lot. I didn't want to, because I didn't want to mess my name up. I didn't want that broken lease to be on my back. But so I left, and he stayed in the apartment. I moved in with my mom, me and my kids, and we put all my stuff in storage. And then by the time the lease was up in the apartment, that's when he finally moved all his stuff out. And then I think the last day I went to the apartment to make sure he hadn't damaged it up, because I knew he was going to probably break some stuff or put holes in the wall because he was mad. Mm-hmm. And so I went to check and make sure, and surprisingly he didn't. I think there were a few boxes and a few toast left, and I called him to ask him if he was coming to get it, and he said no, he didn't have anywhere to put the stuff. So I told him, well, you know, this is the last day of the apartment, so that stuff's going to have to be thrown away.
So during this time you move out. This is the incident where your son steps in and he says, you know, he's trying to protect you. You want to protect him, but there's physical altercation that happens that your son is stepping in. That's why he does it.
Right. He got him. We were arguing, like I said, and he got in my face, and I was praying that he wouldn't. That was all he was going to do. He was just going to get in my face. I was hoping that he wasn't going to do anything else, but he did. And he grabbed me by my throat and pushed me up against the wall and squeezed.
Yes.
And at that point, that's when my son ran. He heard the noise and he ran upstairs and came in. And when he let go of me, he started yelling at my son. And that's when I jumped in between them two. And I was like, "You're not, first of all, it's bad enough you've been hitting on me, but you're not going to hit on him."
Right.
And so at that point, like I said, my other kids came in. They were crying and screaming. And then I grabbed some things and I left. And because at that point, my mom's house was my safe house.
Right.
So by then I would go to her house to get away from him.
Right.
And so when I left that final time, that's when I told him that, hey, I was moving out. The lease, he had to leave. The lease, I didn't want to break my lease, but he refused to leave.
Right.
And so that's when I just stayed in my mom's house and I put my stuff in storage and waited till the lease was up. And actually, I did break my lease by 1 month because he still was saying that he didn't want to leave and he had nowhere to go. But I felt like the only way to get him out and get him out, away from my life for a while was I just went ahead and took that month and I called the leasing office and told them that I had moved out. My kid's dad, we had got into a fight. The police had been called.
Right.
I showed them the police reports and they let me out the lease. And I think honestly to this day, I think they let me out of it without putting that month on my history. So I think they did me a favor because of everything that was going on. And then they knew I was a good tenant. I was always paying my rent. They never had any problems out of me.
Right.
So he had no choice but to leave.
Right. But in that escape point, you understanding that day, you just grabbed things and left before getting all of your stuff. Is that how it went?
Right. I just grabbed the necessities. I grabbed, of course, my kids.
Yeah.
I grabbed some clothes.
Yeah.
And we booked it to my mom's house.
Right. So I just want to tell each person that's out there right now, what would you like to tell, someone that's in it or their family? What would you like to, tell to the viewers? Because you're a survivor now. You're a survivor.
Right. If you're in it, I would say pray. Pray that God gives you the strength to get out of it sooner than later.
Yes.
Don't wait. And even though you're thinking that this, sometimes we're scared of the after. We don't know. The unknown, it scares us. Don't worry about the unknown and just know that God is going to protect you, whether you're out of it and with him or still there. But the main thing you need to focus on and ask God for is that strength to get out of it, because you don't deserve that. No, it's not okay for somebody to put their hands on you. It's not okay to be called names. It's not okay to be ridiculed. It's not okay to be controlled. None of that is love. So if you can get out, I would say get out. Even though I know it's easier said than done. Have that faith that when you get out, everything will be okay. And family members, just support the person. Don't make them feel bad. Don't make them feel like the worst person in this world, because that's going to keep them there even longer. Just support them and let them know that they have somewhere to go, that you will be there, that they can come tell you anything. You're not going to judge them.
I love it. Miss TRICIA Jones, you have blessed so many by not only today, but by your book. Where can they purchase the book? Where can they get your book?
The book is on Amazon. Just search His Weapon of Choice and you'll see the book. You can also go to my website, Tricia N. Jones, and the link to get to Amazon is there, but it's easy just to go straight to Amazon. And you can also find me on Facebook, Tricia Jones, LaTricia Jones.
And thank you so much. She is a life coach and mentor and educator. So if you need help, she's also there and has resources and can help you and guide you through because she's been through it. Thank you, lady,
Yes.
for everything
Thank
you've
you.
done. Thank you for your strength, for everything you've had, and know that your life is a blessing to so many from your story.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's it for us today on the Cam Hill Show. All this week, we will have Women Who Win Series 2020. Today was TRICIA Jones. Tomorrow will be Sparkle Lockett, Makeup by Sparkle. Have a great one. Bye.